they need to be posted outside 24 hours, and we're supposed to notify the media, which we've done. As long as you do that for 24 hours, it's fine.
So it doesn't have to be, so we're
No.
not gonna run into a publishing issue. Yeah, that's just for
Yeah, yep.
I just get paid enough to the presence to the council. What's on? 5 minutes.
5 minutes. I have a migraine. I'm gonna have to sit down for this.
They made a return to the
Yeah, I'll just pull one over.
Carter, whatever it is, the Beyonce
Yeah, I'm like, I'm hungry.
and sing. Different. Now, I would allow you to be confused between NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. But there is no, should be no confusion between New Kids on the Block.
I think last time I looked at it, sometimes that has the lineup right. I think last time I looked at it, it was like 4 bars. So just waiting and looking at it. Why does she just move up here now?
Let's see, that's the,
88 podium. I can also move that down.
Yeah,
Move your stuff.
my migraine is so bad, I just threw up. So do you think, so do you think if I said to my staff, I'm in the vomitose period of a migraine, who's gonna take over? How many would flee the room?
If what?
Yeah.
If what
Tim
happened?
will take any bullet, right?
I got a migraine so bad.
Oh, we're feeling sick. Can't you just master speaker? I'll just whisper it to the stress.
Since last Fridays, Wednesday was school, and then Monday we had the Cowboys, and then Wednesday we had and then today it's like, shit, guys, what's our budget? And I had to, literally I said, everybody knows, send me, we're going. So, I literally had 5 minutes to look at it, it's good. I did it for times.
Oh, it came back. We lost. We lost.
who's gonna tell Lance he's in the wrong seat?
Yeah.
Intentionally
I
moving.
told him, I said, guys,
I need somebody to talk to me and then switch my
I
mind.
gotta tweak this. Here's what I'm hearing as of yesterday, and
Sorry, folks, I didn't know the time got away from me here. For those of you that are preparing or presenting today, I'm trying to keep these as informal as we can. I'm not restricting any time from the council for questions. Would just ask that we stay on task. And basically, this is about the budget. And if we have other questions that get us into the weeds, that just takes up time, and we're all overworked and underpaid. So let's stay on task here and try and get through this as efficiently as possible. So Vicki asked me if her and Daniel could kind of break some things up. I'm fine with that. It looks like Vicki's first, so you're on, Vicki.
thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. President. And I appreciate that this is a casual meeting. I am sitting down in part because I've been fostering a migraine all day, and it's just more comfortable for me to be sitting down. So if you would allow us, we'd like to explain to you the community development budget proposal for 2026. And we would like to start out with first just identifying the department divisions. And there's a handout that's been put in front of you. Those are for you to take home. It's just a handy dandy sheet. There are times when you get a complaint from a constituent or a question and you're wondering, who do I call? And this would be a good reference for you to look at to see, is it building services? Is it code enforcement? Is this something that should go to community development at all? So hopefully you will find this helpful. Within community development, we have 6 divisions, and they're multitasked. With all those tasks that are identified, there are 35 FTEs. I call us small in number but mighty in duty. I am so proud of this group, and they continue to take on additional duties as they come to the city when we have expanded outreach programming for building services. Obviously, that's where we're going to be issuing our building permits, but we've also tucked our substandard structures in there too. And so a lot of our budget requests that you see in 26 are because of our aging substandard housing in this area and the fact that many of those do have to be demolished. In our current planning division, we did get it in our 25 budget for our e-submittal software. We have landed on Tyler as the software company to go with. You're going to be looking at that contract soon. We'll be standing that up yet this year. In addition to that, all of the items that you see on your city council agenda, for the most part, come through that current planning division. They're the hamster wheel. Every 2 weeks there's a submittal. That's where your conditional use permits, your plats, your rezones, those all go to that group, and those have to go to planning commission, and many of those also go on to city council. Air quality, we put that in there. It used to be more of a standalone, and we put in there, we found that to be a great cost savings, and that'll continue to be a cost savings going into 26. Long-range planning, that is the staff that does our transportation analysis for the city. It also does our census numbers. This is the support staff that we have for the Metropolitan Planning Organization and Committee. This MPO area is huge. They need a city to administer all of their studies and programs for final approval. Rapid City is it. So a lot of our budget numbers, and we'll get to that later on, seem to be elevated, but remember, we get reimbursed through that, through the MPO. So while the number is there, it's revenue that we will also see, and that doesn't always reflect when you look at our expense column. Code enforcement, literally, we have 3 code enforcement officers. It's amazing what they do. Obviously, the city continues to grow. We are doing an educational component more than always trying to be more proactive than reactive in complaints, but truly the number of complaints we get is an extreme amount. And in addition, I worked hard to obtain sustainability in our employees. And to do that meant that we had to pay them accurately and adequately. So when I look at code enforcement, that doesn't say nuisance officer, that it's just weeds and snow removal. It's knowing the zoning code. And so I've partnered code enforcement with the current planning division, and they're going through constant 101 zoning so that I don't have the current planning staff to go out and see, did the landscaping get planted? Is the parking lot how it should be 10 years later? But when we get complaints about something, code enforcement now knows if that sign is illegal or legal or not. Is that fence going to be an issue? So again, it's trying to use existing staff in multiple ways to meet the needs of our growing community. Parking enforcement, Rod, you probably know that staff as well as I do. He's pretty much become a staff member with us, and he's been a great asset to the Parking Advisory Board meeting as well as the Parking Focus Group meeting. They obviously are administering the city's downtown parking needs and permitting throughout all of the downtown area, and even extended over by the YMCA. It's an expanded area. It's surprising for somebody to realize how far of an area that they do have to police. Our planning projects division, this is one, it seems to be the catch-all, land-all. that when we've got things that need to get done, this lands in the expertise of this division. And these are scholarly planners that are experts in doing studies, working with consultants when that is the right and limited opportunities when we should be working with consultants. The historic preservation obligations of the city are housed within this division also. And then our recent hire, our planning projects division manager, when there was a call out from the ADA committee that they needed a ADA coordinator, for years that always sat in the HR office for decades. But it was asked if our department would take it over. And of course, that division raised their hand and said, we will do it. It is a significant time-consuming. I heard last night in one of the presentations that it didn't take much time. I almost come running from my office in here to say, no. It's about a 30% staff pull on time. But if you're going to do it, you got to do it right. And you got to put heart in it. And you have to work with these people that have this need to truly understand that sometimes even though the regulations don't support that they get what they get, maybe we can work with them anyway and work with business owners and still get what they need. And so I am so proud that that division stood up and said, we will do that. And we've taken that duty on. As a part of these 6 divisions, we also support a lot of boards. We staff the Building Code Board of Appeals, Zoning and Planning, Air Quality Board, Downtown Beautification Committee. Lindsay, I believe you're working closely with Morgan Twombly, and again, that's from our department. She's actually our environmental planner that, again, put her hand up when no one else would and said, I would love to participate, and I think she's been a key element to that project coming forward. Long-range planning, again, they are the execution of the MPO program in its entirety. They also have to host the EPC and the TCC, which are MPO meetings. Parking Enforcement Division, we just talked about the Parking Advisory Board. Rod sits on that one. And then planning projects, we have historic preservation, sign review for historic, and then the Disability Awareness and Accessibility Committee. And again, that's coming out of our planning project division for support. In building services, you can see that our revenues continue to increase in our building permit numbers from 2025. What we were projecting then in 2026 is a continued climb. To date, we've done about 4,800 inspections, and our numbers kind of end around June or at the start of July. So we're projecting that by the end of 25, we'll be over 10,000 inspections with our inspection team. In addition, our number of substandards have grown. So even though there are 11 FTEs in building services, we continue to take on these expanded duties. And here's what we're doing, and here's why I didn't ask for any new FTEs. We job share. It's this great concept. Not everyone is 100% busy 40 hours a week. It just isn't the reality of how employment usually works. So when we have a number of inspections that come in, and we do same-day inspections, and the community is accustomed to that. So if we get an abnormal number, the code plan examiners will look at their schedules to see what needs to go out the door right now and what can be deferred till tomorrow, and they go out and we cross-train so that instead of having to fill that position, taking more tax dollars for another FTE, we are trying to meet the need with existing FTEs, and we will continue to do that until I come to you and say I can't do it anymore. The rubber band is stretched too thin. For the most part, again, our growth is typically in apartments and commercial development. We did see a robust increase in our single-family residential permits of late. I was getting a little concerned that our housing market was moving so slow that we lagged behind, but we are starting to see those pick up as well. And again, the market is what it is. We have tariffs that have started as of today. We'll see what that does to housing construction costs. But as we look at the history of where we see that revenue generation coming in, we are anticipating that we will see a slight increase in building permit revenue in 2026. If nothing else, the cost of the materials go up, and then the percentage that we get for the building permit fee goes up. Current planning, and again, this is the hamster wheel. There are 5 staff, 2 admin, and 3 planners. If you see a shovel of dirt during getting turned in the city, there's a chance that this team is looking at it in some form or fashion, whether it be an item that's going to go before the Planning Commission or the City Council or just a building permit. Air quality is tucked up in there too. For years, the air quality position was a standalone position, and it was a 40-hour-a-week position. We hired this wonderful air quality, we hired a person who was skilled in air quality, but also had a lot of environmental planning experience. So we changed the name of the position to an environmental planner. We tucked her into current planning. And even though she is doing all of the air quality inspections, at least half of her time is spent helping out the other current planners. You see her name, you'll see her at Planning Commission making presentations. Again, I was in need of another planner, but I had this position and I thought, let's job share. She loves it, and it's giving her opportunities for growth that she wouldn't have if we didn't take this opportunity to job share. We don't get a lot of revenue from our application fees. It's usually $250 for any one of these development applications that go before the community. But what we do get is the property tax increase and the sales tax revenue that we see when we make it as expedient and easy of a process as we can to stand up new, more development. Our air quality numbers, again, all the rain has really helped us this year, so our air quality issues haven't been what they have been. One of the big accomplishments that we have achieved in 2025 is landing on that e-submittal software. And again, you're going to be seeing that contract soon. And then in 2026, we are going to be bringing in the request to sustain that e-submittal software for further implementation. And we need to do a public outreach on it. There needs to be a large educational component. Box Elder currently uses the same one, so a lot of our consultants that work with us work with Box Elder. They're accustomed to it. Our finance system uses Tyler, and so making those electronic payments in Tyler, we landed on that being the best one. You'll hear more about that when we do get to the contract and why we did choose them. Long-range planning, that's 3 staff, and that's actually maybe 3.5 staff, because the other half of that 1 staff person is one of my coordinators, who's, or 2.5 rather, is actually in the audience today, and she's the one that puts my budget numbers together. So I told her, in case I go sideways on something, be here and straighten me out. Again, this is one where we've got our transportation studies that the team is working on this year. You'll be seeing our comprehensive plan update soon. Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan, that's underway. The Rapid Trip 2050 MTP plan, railroad relocation and railway realignment. We are really excited about that one. And then they do the traffic counts too. Again, I mentioned earlier, this is also where the census numbers come from. There's one staff member in there that she's just purely a statistician. When we need numbers, she can come up with them. In 2026, while we don't believe that we're going to be doing any outside studies, there may be some internal studies that deal with traffic patterns and transportation needs. But the big ones I mentioned earlier is that MPO need to run some studies through our budget. You're going to see those, and again, we get reimbursed for those, so bear with us. It looks like an expense, but it's really going to be revenue at the end of the day. Kip Harrington put that first bullet in there. It explains how the state comes back and reimburses us at that 81.9%. And because we run it through, they pay 81.9% of the salaries of these 3 staff as well. So again, always looking for that buck to save for the department. The last bullet on there, while we haven't secured this grant yet, we're excited about it, and it's one that we are hopeful that we will work with the grants division to get. But we are really wanting to partner with Rapid Transit. They're looking at some different micro-mobility opportunities. This is something that that division has already visited with the mayor's office on. I think they're getting us all excited about it. And you'll hear more about it when we talk about the public works budget. This is the planning projects, and again, this is the catch-all one with the disability awareness. This group is putting a huge effort into completing the comprehensive plan update. And I want to take a moment here to let you know that while we did hire a consultant to bring forward this comprehensive plan, and some of you sat on that study advisory, this staff has done a huge lift, and we're rewriting big portions of it. It just isn't the caliber that we want it to be, and the staff has just been doing an unbelievable job on that. Council, you approved the Urban 3 study. It's going to be a great economic analysis to see when we approve projects, long-term, does it make the city money or does it cost the city money? And I think that's something that we've never looked at before, and I'm excited to see the end result on it. Some of our 26 priorities are, while we didn't have the comprehensive plan update the future land use map, because our future land use plan is a pretty solid one. There's a lot of flexibility in it. We staff are going to do that. We're going to go out into the neighborhoods. We're going to have neighborhood meetings. We're going to see what's working and not working, and you're going to see us bring that forward in 2026. In addition, we also will work with the Historic Preservation Committee. We will continue doing historic preservation projects, and that's an educational component to get more and more property owners aware of the benefits of maintaining the historic quality of the homes. And then circling back, we've taken a peek at some of what Urban 3 is doing. It's amazing that if we can preserve the historic relevance to a property, how that grows in value for the city. And I think we're going to be really proud of the work we've done in preserving our historic district, both in commercial and residential. While the ADA transition plan actually does fall within the Public Works department, because we have our ADA coordinator, we are going to be working with the grants division, hopefully to secure some grant dollars, and we want to partner with Public Works, again, that job sharing, because we need to bring forward an ADA transitional plan. This is something that has been due for quite some time, and we're behind in doing it, and we want to partner with that to ensure that that does come forward. Code enforcement, I think most of you are very familiar with what they do. Again, stressing that they are not only nuisance officers, but they are code crime rates. And so as a part of what code enforcement does, they have formed a SWAT team with the police department, fire department, building services, attorney's office, and code enforcement. And when we see properties that have high crime, high nuisance, substandard structures, we get together and we work as a team to clean them up or take them down. And we're seeing some wonderful, wonderful benefits to the community as a part of it. And my hat goes off to the two chiefs, because they've staffed that for us, because we have to go in as a strong team to get the attention of the property owner. Parking enforcement, again, we're looking at a crew of 6. That's 1 admin. Obviously, we have a manager, but we've got 4 officers out in the field, and they're performing inspections on 23 meters, 1,200 two-hour parking spots, 650 single-space meters, 3 multi-space meters, 410 off-street leased parking spaces, 13 loading zones. We also have the parking structure that we have to maintain, and we've got several surface parking lots downtown that we have to maintain. And one of the things you're going to see in our budget for parking enforcement is that some of our expenditures have significantly decreased. And they've decreased because we're job sharing. Remember, we've been talking about setting up those centralized services. Instead of calling up a contractor and saying, we need this work done in our parking lot or in the parking structure, we're calling streets and maintenance, and city staff is coming over. And so already we're seeing a savings right now, and we're going to see it again in 26. I wanted to share this with you. This is a letter that we received, and this is about one of our parking enforcement officers. She gave someone a ticket, and they were so elated that they had to send in a little note that said, I pay this ticket with joy. I met Dee Dee officer number 834, who was the best ambassador for the city. What a delight she is. Believe it or not, Dee Dee was a highlight of our visit. Please pass this compliment along. Now, you know you're doing a good job when you give someone a citation and they give you accolades that you're a wonderful ambassador. And that's the heart of the staff. We remind them, you cite the vehicle, you do not cite the person. And being friendly and kind is of utmost importance when you're working with the public. And I think that this is a good show that parking enforcement is landing that solidly. Looking at where we are in 25 and 26, our personnel numbers are up, but remember we do have that 27 pay period that's anticipated for 26, and so that absorbs almost all of that. And I want to be honest, many of our staff did receive merit and COLA raises in 25, and that number is reflected in there as well. Our professional services, that was significantly up, but this also includes some of our interdepartmental charges that Daniel had to distribute out because of our centralized services. So that lands in that line item, which is why that jumps so much. And then that's also where our $300,000 abatement budget got tucked into. Rentals are the same. Repairs and supplies, that went down. I explained a little bit ago, a lot of our centralized services that we're doing right now, it's saving us money. So even though we just started it, we're seeing the benefit of it. Utilities is about the same. Training and education. What I've challenged my team on is this. If there's anything we can do remotely, instead of flying to, New Orleans for a planning conference, if we can join via Zoom and still get the benefit of the programming, let's do that. And so we really cut the dollars in 25, and we've maintained that in 26. Other operating really captures our e-submittal software. You'll see it was very high in 25, but we had to purchase some of that e-submittal and STR software. In 26, it'll just be maintaining it, and that's by a far lesser amount. So overall, we are looking at a reduction in our software for 26. Our expenses across the board were slightly higher in 26 than we are in 25. But remember that interdepartmental charge is the main reason behind that one. When we look at I guess I should advance you guys with me. Because, see, I can't read that from here, so I brought a cheat sheet. Our consultant services, we've talked about those. Our MPO, that $400,000, that's the dollar amount I'm talking to you about. It's in our budget, but that's that MPO. We're going to get reimbursed for that, so please support that. We've got to run that MPO program through us. And remember, then they pay 81.9% of 3 staff members' salaries. Our decreases, our consultant services, primarily, we've done some outsourcing for studies. In 26, we plan on doing our in-house studies. So we'll see a significant decrease in that. Software, again, we bought the software in 25, sustaining it is by a lesser amount. And then other professional services is significant reduction, and that then goes to the centralized services. There was some information that some of you had reached out about. We do have some funding from grants. Air quality, we get $60,000. Historic, we get $26,000. The MPO, there are many grants that come through that programming. And then these are listed at the end. What we typically get from the MPO program is the last line item on that page. It's $687,000 that we'll get back from running that MPO program through. So with that, I think I will stand for questions, and I do have staff members with me if there's anything in particular that you want to know that I am not well versed on. Thank you.
We'll go to Kevin Maher.
Thank you. Vicki, thanks for the presentation. I have a question on the e-submittal software. When you're working with the company, did they provide you with any information to show you how much money you could save or how much time could be taken out of a planning?
Again, that's one of the reasons why I knew I did, even though our numbers continued to go up and we are doing more in-house studies, which will require the current plannings to participate. I didn't ask for an FTE because a lot of that, when we get those electronic plans, even my skilled planners know that reviewing them there's AI sources that are there that will help us. This works, this doesn't work, and so that will expedite it. More importantly, we sat down with representation from all departments, from parks, from public works. The list goes on. At the attorney's office, we had Jim Gilbert and his team join us. We wanted to make sure whatever software we purchased was user-friendly across the city so that we buy it once, but it's used throughout many, many departments. Again, that cost sharing.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Seacrest.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Vicki, for all you do for the city. I know you run on a lean and mean crew, and we appreciate all that community planning does. My question on the abatement budget this year, you have a pretty significant increase. Will that be enough to start really making some movement in Star Village? I know we had 40 total garages that have already been condemned. Is that going to be enough to allow us to accomplish what needs to happen at this point? And I've been attending some of those workforce meetings with the Star Village staff and that crew that you mentioned. So I know that at some time we had discussed potentially needing a council contingency to help support that effort this year. Is there still a need for additional funds in 2025?
So right now we used about 61,000 just for grass and snow and all of that. We have about another 100,000 that's earmarked for taking down substandards in the community. We've taken one down, but we've got 3 or 4 more that need to come down. We had a house just burn in the last week, and there's about 3 others. But in our task force meetings on that particular development, we know that there are a substantial amount. We're going to have about 140 left over in our 300,000 25 budget that we can use towards taking down substandards at Star Village. You will see an item in the near future on the council agenda asking for 150,000 more. And even then, it is literally a drop in the bucket. And what we're trying to shift gears on is, should we take down garages that really aren't really the problem? Or should we be looking at some of these substandard homes that squatters are in that are causing the illegal activity? Are those the one that we should be taking down? A lot of them don't even have water and sewer.
Yes, probably both. I just mentioned the substandard garages because that stuck out in my notes, but I know we talked about 30 units not occupied presently that we could start taking action on, and there's a strategic plan, and maybe how that summarized and sent to the council would be wonderful. But so we're going to see a request for that in this year's budget, and then next year we'll have some additional funds earmarked just for Star Village.
So you're going to see the supplement in the next few weeks for my 2025 budget. And then in 26, we're going to start again at 300,000. And then if we need more, we're going to come back to you. But we're going to try to maintain 300,000. Because again, we are getting ahead of some of our substandards in the community.
Okay, thank you. And I thought it was interesting to me to see that we have more parking enforcement officers than we do code enforcement officers. And just that, we have 55 square miles in the community. My second question is, what do we need, or how could we fund you better to be more proactive in the code enforcement area versus reactive and complaint based?
So if I could answer that first statement, number one, parking is an enterprise fund and code enforcement comes out of the general fund. That's one thing. Code enforcement gets in a vehicle and drives. Parking enforcement, for the most part, walks. I have parking enforcement officers that are putting on close to 9 miles a day.
Wow.
So that's why I got another officer in my downtown beat.
Gotcha.
Okay. My concern is, and one of the things that one of our goals in 26, we need to get ahead of our older homes turning to substandard homes. We need to create an inventory, and we need to set up an educational program with a lot of landlords to see if we can assist them so that when they need help, when that roof goes bad and they don't have the money to fix it, or the foundation is cracked, or the basement is leaking, how can we educate and connect them with resources so that we save those structures? Every year, our older housing stock grows, and that is my biggest need. We were so excited. There was a grant that we were working on with the grants division, and it had a huge funding source for this, and it would have allowed us to bring on FTEs, because even doing that inventory, I would see that as a temporary position. It wouldn't have to be full-time. And then it got doged, and that funding got cut. But we are being relentless. We are out there looking at other resources, and I do believe in 26 we'll find some grant dollars. Housing is always a demand, and we'll find some way to work that in and get grant dollars to pay for that.
I was specifically, I guess, talking more on the code enforcement side with the zoning, or not, with the, just in my neighborhood alone, and I know we hear Mr. Evans talk all the time about vehicles parked in the right of way, or the tall grass. I mean, I walk all throughout my neighborhoods and send texts to Clayton all the time, but we're not being proactive. It's all reactive. And so I how do we become more proactive in that, and how can we get to that point?
That is that educational component, where our code enforcement division manager has reached out to some apartment owners and some homeowner associations saying, did you know? Because a lot of people just don't know. I would like to add that it is not code enforcement's responsibility to address vehicles parked in right-of-way that are unlicensed or there more than 24 hours. We've been asked by the police department to assist, and so somehow or another, the optics are that we take lead, and we've even got the police deferring people to us, and we had to remind them, wait a minute, how many officers do you have? We got 3. So work with us. We'll help, but work with us. So we do need to get that right sized. If we had 4 officers, would we be proactive? We'd probably still be reactive. The city continues to grow, the neighborhoods continue to age, and a lot of people just don't have pride of home ownership. Again, that's out of the general fund. We try to be cognitive of not knowing where our property taxes are going to be in 27, maintaining, knowing that if we have the ability to get it in 26, can we sustain it in 27? We don't want to let someone go in 27. So we are working diligently to make sure that it's all hands on deck, doing as much as we can.
Thank you, Vicki. I appreciate everything you do.
Go to Bill Evans. Oh, Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Vicki. Quick question, you're working on a vacation home ordinance, correct?
Yes, we are.
Is that, would the fees from that impact your budget, or what?
It'll be, they should be revenue neutral. We have the money in our 25 budget to buy a registration software program for vacation homes. That's already in our budget. And I will be visiting maybe even a workshop with many council to walk through how the group came up with the ordinance that we will be presenting to council. We are working with DOH right now on inspections, and I need that element resolved before we bring it forward. When we do stand that up, and I think I can convince you of it when given an opportunity that we do need to stand it up, whatever we are charged for that software, that registration fee will be anywhere from $50 to $100 per registration, and it will just pay for that fee so that, and again, it can cover staff's time and the software expense itself. It can't go beyond that, or it's considered a tax, and we don't have the authority to tax. But it will be neutral.
And maybe this is a question that should go to Daniel, I don't know, but will that money, any revenue, would that be part of your department then? Is that where it would be assigned to?
Again, the expense will come from our department, and then the fees that come back will go back to the general fund. Everything we do, whether we're collecting fees for building permits, whatever we collect, it goes back to the general fund. It does not come back to community development. The only thing that comes back to one of my departments is parking, and that's because it's an enterprise fund.
And is that somewhere in the ordinance, that in our city ordinances, or is that a state law that if we charge more than what the cost of administration is, then it becomes a tax? Is that?
It's state. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you.
Mr. Evans.
Since Ms. Seacrest poked the bear, I guess he better wake up and growl. So, as far as fees go, I don't know if that sounds kind of like a misinterpretation, because we have fees for all kinds of things. And in one of my other meetings earlier today, they said, well, you know, we did our presentation, but our fee for that has not increased since like 1971 or something. And I said, well, this is the reason we are calling this. We kind of need to know that stuff. So fees need to be addressed. Now's the time to do it so that we can go to the mayor and we can sit as a council and decide we need to raise that. It's not keeping up with inflation. It's not paying for what it's supposed to pay for. So, you know, I hope people are being honest when they come up and it's not giving us the rosy glass look at this stuff, but we actually say we need more money for that because it's not paying its way. And I know people around here constantly griping about high fees and building permits and everything, but the reality is ours are not high when you compare it nationally, especially with surrounding communities and states that seem to have bigger budgets. The other thing is this code enforcement thing is something that needs to be fixed with parking. It seems to work with certain things, but as far as parking in on lawns and median strips and everything else is out of control in this town. And I actually phoned a couple in this week. Nothing's been done. There's been one car parked on 5th Street on the lawn right next to the traffic lane heading heading north for a week now. It's never moved. Nothing's been done about that. And that one house on St. Charles, they paved the entire front yard in concrete and are using it to park commercial trucks on, which I think is a code violation, but I guess evidently not. Well, now they've taken to parking a 3500 diesel truck with a 28-foot trailer lengthwise in the parking, in the tree lawn, as they would call it in Ohio, our Boulevard Strip. These things need to be changed, and I phoned that one in too, haven't heard back. So it appears to me that nobody thinks that that's their job to do, and that seems to be a job that gets done in every other community I go to, but for some reason in this town it doesn't get accomplished. So if we need to make it a priority, then we're going to have to make it a priority and get it done, because I think it's something that really makes our community look junky and needs to stop. And I even think as late as it was 10 years ago, this was not a problem. So this is something that has evolved over the last decade or so. All right, so that's all I have to say about that. Thank you. Bears are going back to the cave.
Mr. Chair, could I
Yes.
comment on the fees?
Yep.
Bill, I think those comments are really good, and especially the one on the fees. I want to remind you that our fee schedule does come to you, I believe, twice annually.
Yes.
And so that's the opportunity that you have to adjust those fees. When Daniel was determining the interdepartmental charges, there was a firm that was hired, and they've got Excel spreadsheet software program that can look at, for these services being done, what should those interdepartmental charges be? And in years past, we've sat down and when we are looking at what should the fee be for a building permit, well, who all sees it? How much is their salary? What's the overhead for being in this building? If they do inspections, what's the insurance on the vehicle and how much gas do they use? Well, now there's AI to do all of that. And so what we want to do is use that software program to run all of our fee schedules through and do adjustments, and you will find that they will need to be adjusted, because you've heard me say, gosh knows you've all heard Kurt Bechtel say, we've not had an increase in fees in over 30 years, and that's true, we haven't. Numerous times we've documented the hours, we've had everyone check it, we've brought something forward to council to say, it shouldn't be this, it should be this, and it's been denied. So again, it's hesitant for staff to continue to do that hard analysis over and over again to continually have it denied. But it appears that the voice of the council, the majority of council, are recognizing that we're behind on fees, and growth should pay for growth. I think we've heard that messaging throughout the comp plan, going out into neighborhoods. That should pay for itself. And so I hope we get your support when we do bring our fee schedule forward, because you're going to see those increase in fees across the board.
Kelly Meyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Vicki. And apologies if you maybe mentioned this or if I missed it somewhere, but for abatements, do we just write off that $300,000 or assume it a loss, or how much do we actually get back from, if we charge someone for taking down their garage, do we see 10% of people pay, or I'm just curious how much comes back?
We eventually get everything back, because if they don't pay, then you will see a line item on your council agenda that says we want to put this on an assessment roll. So if they didn't mow their grass, didn't pay, or we took down their house and they don't pay, we will then attach it as a lien on the property, and when it sells, the city will get paid.
Very good. Thank you.
Vicki, I have a couple of questions, and Jeremy, our grant writer might have to answer this, I don't know. On these reimbursements for 2026, are we confident those will be coming through, or any of those gonna, I assume that's federal money, and will we get that federal money with all that's going on in Washington?
Mr. Chair, for 26, we will get air quality, historic, and the MPO we believe is solid. And again, on the MPO, if that money doesn't come through, they won't do those studies and we won't be spending those funds. But you're right, historic preservation grant in 27 got doged. So you're gonna see me in my 27 budget tell you of all the great things we are doing on an educational, it's only 26,000, but we do workshops and we bring contractors in and homeowners in and we show them how to preserve these structures. We want to continue doing that. Right now we've got grant dollars to cover those workshops. We won't in 27, and we're going to be asking council to help subsidize that.
And I've asked this of you, Vicki, in the past. When you have fees for an abatement and when they pay the city, that goes into the general fund. There's probably some ordinance or statute, but I just think it'd make more sense if that'd go directly to your apartment. Then you kind of have a revolving fund. So who can answer me, why can't that go direct into your fund? Why does it have to go into the general fund?
I'll defer to Daniel.
Thank you, Director Fisher.
Anytime.
So when there is an abatement, the portion that pays for the actual costs that were incurred by the outside contractor, that does go into that separate fund, into that demolition fund. And it's demolition and rehab, I think, or repair.
Repair.
Demo and repair fund. And so that does create a revolving fund. The portion that does not is the administrative fee that's added to that. So the city does recoup well over 90% eventually. You have to take the long view of that, but but there are occasionally some things that are written off, unfortunately.
Thank you, Daniel. A couple other questions or comments for Vicki. I went out with code enforcement a couple times, and they did an abatement of this house, and they had a contractor there. I mean, it was quite an episode to watch that. And I know we bill for that contractor's time, but there were 3 police officers there and 2 code enforcement officers there, and I was told we don't bill for their time. We should be billing for that time. It's all a cost to the city, and that homeowner, property owner, should be paying for that expense. I know when they go out and write the ticket or whatever they do, that's a city expense, but any additional costs in any of these things, I believe, should be a cost to the homeowner because we're investing time. So I don't know if that could be looked at. And I have the fee list at my house, and it's ridiculous. I've studied it and studied it and studied it. Some of these fees are just so low, and I would just ask that whatever city staff it is, let's get that up to date. We don't have months. Let's make that a priority, because our city budget is not healthy really, and we got to get these fees to pay for things. So I would ask the city staff, make that a priority and get that fee list up to date. Lindsay Sechrist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just had a final thought on the fee schedule myself. When we see that fee schedule come through to council, it is summarized for the fees that are being recommended to be adjusted at that time. And so I think that while it's, I appreciate you saying, oh, we see that twice annually. Well, we're not really seeing the actual fees for everything in the city twice annually. So that's, and not to a jab at you, Vicki, but that's hard for us to just, I'm not always thinking, oh, I need to go look at the water fee for this or that. I mean, we're really relying on our city staff to bring these fee projections and what you feel is needed to be adjusted forward so that we can support you in that, at least. Or maybe, Daniel, if you could send us a copy of that fee schedule and just say, hey, here's what we have, and do you want us to look through that and create our own fees? I mean, just to make that happen. So thank you.
Mr. Evans.
Oh, just one question. This one won't bug you, but I'm just curious. I have never figured out what the historic sign committee is and what they do. What exactly do they do? And shouldn't that be part of the historical preservation thing rather than a separate committee? How many signs do we have? I mean,
Absolutely right. And so while I could answer this one, again, please meet Marlo Capsa. I stole her from Spearfish. She was their planning director. What a lucky find. But her passion, Jenny Bergstrom, they used to work together. Marlo was her supervisor in Spearfish, and now she's her supervisor in Rapid City. The heart they have under historic, I can't have her in the room and not let her speak to it.
Marlo Capsa, Planning Projects Division Manager. Bill, thank you, or Councilman Evans, thank you for the question. And if Jenny is listening in on this right now, she's probably going to shake her head about whatever I end up answering, because she knows this stuff so well. She is the one that manages all of the historic preservation work that we do. But your question to what is the purpose of the Historic Sign Committee, ultimately the Historic Sign Committee is reviewing the sign design. So per ordinance, our signage needs to be designed in alignment with the era of which the building was constructed. So there is overlap in terms of who sits on that committee. That committee does not have a consistent meeting schedule like our Historic Preservation Commission does. I can certainly do some research, and honestly, several of the folks on the Historic Sign Committee could probably very quickly update me on how those two committees came to be separate. However, the purpose of the Historic Sign Committee is to review the design of signs and ensure that they are in alignment with the area of the building in which they were constructed. So for Block 5, as we were reviewing that sign package, there were a lot of questions that arose related to the font of the building signage and the size. And what we had to discuss was the fact that that building sits right on the boundary of the historic district, within the historic district environs, and fully outside of the historic district as well. So when we were reviewing that sign package, the Historic Sign Committee was essential in determining that that signage was not detracting from the historic nature of the downtown area in general, but also recognizing that we're moving forward, and it's okay if the signage of that building is aligning with the more updated modern feel of that particular building. Does that answer your question?
well, I guess, but I'm just also curious if that incorporates that collection of neons that Gene Kesloff has stored over yonder. I think it's in a city building still, if I'm not mistaken.
It is.
And at some time, we need to address where those go and what we want to do. I know if you visit Memphis, you see the really, or even Des Moines now, the really creative use of old neon signs and everything. And I think that's something we could really do to augment, for instance, 6th Street corridor or something, and come up with something creative and make that happen. So.
Yeah, and if I may, I believe those signs are owned by the Rapid City Historical Society, which is separate from both the Historic Preservation Commission and Historic Sign Committee. So it would take collaboration, I think, between those three entities to, find a plan for those.
Mr. Chair, I have been around forever, and so I do remember back in the day, 19-something, I think, the Historic Sign Committee and the Historic Preservation Committee, they thought that the areas of expertise were different. One maybe needed to lean into architectural design, one needed to lean into more advertisement and sign design. And so there was a separate interest in that. And so while there is some overlap, that is why in many communities you would see one board serve as both. So that's how that came about.
John Roberts, you've been very patient. It's your turn.
Anya, there I am. I know, that's hard to believe that I've been patient, isn't it? And I can't believe I'm going to talk about historic preservation. Don't fall over on your seat there, Vicki. You know, sitting on this council, sitting on the planning commission, I enjoyed seeing you guys this morning there again. I can't remember how many times I've had people come in front of either that body or this body saying, well, we bought this house and we didn't realize that we couldn't do this. Well, after 5 years, July 1st, finally, South Dakota sellers' disclosures have whether or not it's in a historic district. And that took forever. I thought that the city was slow. The state is really slow. But that's been done. That should help a lot going forward. And yeah, something we needed done years ago, but it took a long time to get it done.
Greg Stroman.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just to follow up on the fees that Rod was talking about. So you'd mentioned that when you do an abatement, eventually, if it doesn't get paid, then a lien is filed on the property, so that if the property is ever sold, that lien has to be satisfied. I know that filing liens and things like that, it gets more and more costly all the time in terms of either attorney time or even the fees that are charged by the county to record something. And I just want to ask you if we are keeping pace with those costs, because you said that we have to justify the cost of the fee with the actual cost of administration or something like that.
And that's something we'll be looking at too. We have an administration fee that is included in every nuisance violation, and it should be covering that police officer standing out there with that code enforcement officer. And those are the kinds of things that we haven't looked at in a very long time. And again, if we get to the part that there's late fees, that late fee should, where then it now has to go for an assessment roll, which you as council have to take a vote to put it on that assessment. It should be covering any expenses back to the city. So again, prioritize raising fees or reviewing fees. I'll put it that way. Your statements are well heard, and certainly we have the opportunities to address those costs.
I know Bill has another comment. If I could just say on these, to what Mr. Stroman said, when in my business, when we file liens, you know, we just take the cost of that and add it to our bill. I mean, it's pretty simple to run that through. I don't know if you have to guess at it, because those fees are going up significantly. So that's how we do it. It costs $50 to file a lien, we just add it to the bill. Any other questions from the dais? If not, thank you, Vicki. You've been very informational, and I think Mr. Daniel is up next. I don't know, does anyone from the dais want a break right now? Daniel, give us 5 minutes, please.
Sure.
People with real
Daniel, you're on deck.
All right. Maybe not. Third time's the charm. Oh, wait. Okay, there we go. Okay. I think it's on. Okay to start? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. I am going to provide some information regarding the finance department. Our finance department, our mission statement is to proudly and professionally provide service and support to the Rapid City community with accuracy, integrity, and transparency. Unfortunately, just a couple minutes ago, Tara Jennings, our accounting manager, had to leave downstairs. I wanted to make sure to introduce her. She's really one of the unsung heroes of our department, so I'm sorry I didn't get to do that, but she actually had to go downstairs to cover the counter because we are open until 5, and so at 4:30, because we have some people that start at 7:30, it becomes an issue. But anyway, I wanted you guys to hopefully at least see Tara. But with that being said, our finance department has 8 separate cost centers, 6 of which are in the general fund. That includes our community development non-grant portion, that's CDBG, our finance administration, that also includes our city clerk, which covers, excuse me, our various meetings that we have, notices, everything else. Heidi and Angie perform those functions for us. Our accounts payable, accounts receivable, grants management. We have Jamie in the audience. Oh, sorry, you moved. Jamie here, she has done a fantastic job leading that department, or that division. And also within the finance administration, we also have our TIF planner, Mike. You see Mike quite often. He also oversees a couple other of our community enrichment, which is also economic development initiatives. And then not in the general fund, we do have 2 cost centers, our CDBG program, the portion that we receive in grant funds, and then also our RSVP grant as well. So our total budget is $4.8 million. A large portion of that is grant, and I'll explain that in a couple of minutes. Revenue, since we're finance, we always start with revenue because that's kind of the better side of the ledger. Our department service charges, and we'll go into that with a little more depth in a couple of minutes. That totals about almost $2.2 million. That covers the charges for the services that we provide to all the various different departments throughout the city. The next significant revenue, or actually the largest revenue source that we provide the city, is interest. Next year, we're anticipating a little over $8 million in interest. To put that in perspective, in 2021, the city as a whole had just over $100,000. In 2022, it was just under $500,000. Then in 2023 is $7.3 million. Last year, it was almost $2 million. The reality is we don't think we're going to do quite as well next year. Just interest rates are coming down, so I wish I could say we'll do $12.2 million, but I don't think that's going to happen. But it'll still be a lot higher than what it's been in the past. That also is a lot of work that Tara provides, as well as Dave Uhas in our office, and that's a daily activity that we do, calling banks and other institutions, trying to strong arm them to get an extra 0.25% here and there. That's a lot of extra work that they end up doing, but I think it makes a difference for our community. Then permits and fees. Our finance departments, largely Angie, as well as Heidi, handle a variety of permits. That includes liquor, cannabis, lottery, and business licenses. That's just over $500,000. And then our grants division, Jamie here, they have CDBG and RSVP. Those are ongoing federal grants that we receive, as well as various other grants that they apply for. To start with, finance administration, that's our largest division. That's 8.35 FTEs. That is higher than in the past. However, I want to kind of go over that. One is an added request, and this is the one extra position that we are asking for in our department. That would be a financial rate analyst. The idea behind that additional position would actually fulfill probably about 15 minutes of what you were discussing with Director Fisher. That position would be doing our rate studies for utilities. Right now, what has been our habit for our 3 utilities, those utilities end up contracting with engineering firms, frankly paying far too much, and we come up with a rate structure for 3 to 4 years to make sure that it covers the cost of service as well as the capital. And so this rate analyst would end up doing those studies and provide the information to the council annually. In addition to doing that, would also do the interdepartmental fee analysis, which this year we did outsource, and I'll be talking about that in a couple minutes. But in addition to that, also looking at a lot of other fees that we do. We have not really had anyone do a deep dive in all of our fees, whether it's recreational fees, or our developer fees, any of those sorts of things. And that really, truly needs to be done to make sure that we're competitive with our neighbors, but also trying to ensure that growth is actually paying for growth. So that is one extra FTE that we are requesting. And I just want to make sure the council is aware of that. And then in the finance admin for the elected leaders as well as for the general public to understand when projects are going to be completed. There is a reduction of 0.4 FTEs. That's our senior administrative coordinator, Heidi, who I think everyone on the council knows fairly well. We are not reducing her hours. Instead, as Terry brought up, I think yesterday or the day before, she spends Tuesdays and Fridays, or Thursdays, at the library, performing a lot of administrative functions there. We have been able to do that because we're more efficient within the finance office, and so doing that, we were able to partner with library to try to reduce the overall cost for our taxpayers. In addition, we used to have a senior accountant position. That individual left the city, and we divvied up her responsibilities across the organization. And so we were going to reduce that entire FTE, but instead some of the initiatives that we've heard from the council as well as from the mayor is to make sure that we tried to centralize purchasing to have some additional cost benefits, because frankly right now we have 12 different departments and a lot of times different divisions within the same department that we don't really take advantage of cost savings by buying in bulk or doing larger scale purchasing. And so this position would be now refocused on that. So that is not a new position. That's a position we've had vacant for a year that we were going to eliminate, but instead we're reformatting that position. We anticipate starting hiring that position in probably about a month or so. And then in addition to that, our city clerk functions, again, that's 1.6 FTEs. Auditing, reporting, that's Dave Uhas that completes that. And then community enrichment or economic development, that's TIF's Opportunity Capture Fund, and the life safety, Mike here in the audience. Then we have our accounts payable and accounts receivable. Under our accounts payable, that's 4.5 FTEs that we have in there. We are working to establish a modified electronic payment system. In 2026, we're going to be able to provide payments immediately following the council approval the next Tuesday morning. And what's exciting about that, in our world, things in finance are probably exciting that you guys probably don't find, but I guess I'll say that. We immediately on Tuesday mornings would be able to provide payments to vendors via credit card so that they would get their cash instantly versus waiting to have a check printed, placed in the mail, mailed across the U.S. or anything else. That's a benefit to the vendors so that they get their payment faster. It's also more secure for us. There's less chance for bank fraud. And in addition, we would be able to get reward reimbursements. We anticipate that being about $200,000. If a vendor would not take a credit card charge, or if they would charge us a fee, then at that point we would move to an ACH. And then if not an ACH, then we would actually have a check printed with an outside vendor. The cost for that is lower. That should be saving us about 6 hours of staff time about every 2 weeks. And so we're in the process of having that implemented. It will still take us several months to fully finish that process, but we anticipate having that ready sometime in 2026. It should be early in 26, though. And then receivables, we have been making a significant change there. A couple months ago, we were able to finish our implementation of our e-box system. What that has done, when people have automatic bill pay for their utility bills through their bank, the bank was actually writing still a physical check and mailing that to us. And so customers believe that that check was automatically withdrawn from their account and it showed up into our account. That's not what happened. Most of the checks were actually printed in Phoenix or in Chicago, and then it would take a week or so to come through the mail, and so they would end up having late fees, and it was a big issue. This took quite a while, but now we actually have it integrated so that not quite all banks, but the majority of banks now are electronically sending us those payments to us. That has reduced our number of physical checks that we were processing by about 2,500 a month. That's a reduction of about 10%. Again, that's saving us every day probably 3-4 hours a day of processing. In addition, we are in the final stages of finalizing our Tyler payments. That's going to increase user functionality so that individuals can have an easier time paying for their utility bills via credit card online. That's just the way of the not future, that was the way of the past. But at least we're catching up to where we should have been several years ago. But also what's nice about that is that people will be able to make those payments without coming into City Hall. They'll also be able to, when they're late, still be able to make that payment and not necessarily come in. That's one of the things that people get really irritated is after their water's turned off, then they have to make a trip to City Hall to sign a release and waiver and then to pay the additional fee. This way they're going to be able to make it from their mobile device, or they'll be able to make that from home. Hopefully that's going to reduce some of the more negative interactions that we have at the counter and speed up that process for the customers as well as for us. Our strategic initiatives and grants division, that's Jamie's division there. In our RSVP program, we have one FTE. That's essentially fully funded through a federal grant. We do have a local grant match that we have to provide. That's in-kind services, and so that's the portion that our local taxpayers pay for some of our oversight of that, including Jamie's time as well as Dave's time over that. That RSVP program works throughout all of West River, South Dakota. More than 10,000 volunteer hours are coordinated through that event. And so there's a variety of different organizations and entities that receive a benefit from that. In our CDBG, we receive, that's 2 FTEs, we receive about $500,000 a year from the federal government. Applied for and received 18 grants worth $18 million. Next year, they're going to directly administer the RAISE grant. So when you look at their budget and you see the grants division's budget, I think is $1.8 million, I think. The majority of that is not actually for Jamie's salary or office goods or anything else. That's actually for the cost of administering the RAISE grant as well as a couple of other grants. And so when you see the notes in the Excel, that actually has line by line the different grants that are going to be administered from that. And so when you look at the total finance department budget of $4.8 million, again, like $1.8 million of that is to administer a couple different grants. So that kind of skews somewhat our total budget. We have been able to receive $14 for every $1 that's been invested, so it's a fantastic ROI, and I think that division deserves a lot of credit for the significant work that they've done. Unfortunately, as Director Fisher brought up, we did have a couple grants that were doged a couple months ago, some that were very significant, so we did lose $2.6 million in grants that were awarded, but then were repealed, unfortunately. We still have some that are ongoing. So like I said, that 18 million, those are still projects either that have been completed or are ongoing. We also have new grants that we are applying for, but that did impact us, and I don't want to say that, you know, it didn't, because there were some important projects that would have been funded that unfortunately were not. Then strategic initiatives, that additional portion of the grants division title there. The staff there were the lead staff for the Vision Fund process, and will continue doing a lot of work on those Vision Fund projects for the next several years. Also, the website update, they're the ones that are kind of leading that initiative, as well as a lot of different project management, including the video system. The budget highlights for finance. If additional funding was available, something I would love to do is to have citywide Tyler training. Tyler is our ERP system that's been in place now for, I think, 8 years about, 10. There's a lot of individuals that do not have a good working knowledge of Tyler. Across the organization, in a lot of departments, there are people who spend a lot of time duplicating efforts and trying to get their individual department's financial projections to match Tyler's back and forth. It's a waste of time and staff effort. And it's because we do not have a good working knowledge of how to use our software system that we have. And that's across the board. That's across all 12 departments. That's a need that we have as a community. That would make us more efficient. If we had fewer resources, the one position that I'm recommending to add, the financial rate analyst, obviously that would be the position I would eliminate. However, I would say that long term, I think there's a lot of good that needs to come from that. I just want to answer or bring up a couple of things regarding the fees. I took some notes as there was discussion about it. If you guys want to know I guess I forgot the exact verbiage. I think it was the truth or the hard things that you wanted to hear in the budget presentations. Over the next year, the reality is our ambulance department is going to have to start receiving compensation for the trips that it makes outside the city limits, because starting in 2027, there's going to have to be a direct transfer out of the city's general fund to the ambulance fund. And in order to truly be fair, that it's not just Rapid City property taxpayers paying that subsidy, that needs to be something that people outside the city are also paying for. In addition, building fees do need to be looked at, and I think probably all the staff would agree, especially I think the staff on the second floor. That's something I would hope that our financial analysts would be reviewing. Greens fees at our parks, as was brought up yesterday, I think, or the day before. It meets about 90% of operations, but not the capital improvement. I think there needs to be some discussion at the council level to find out at what degree is the council willing to subsidize those efforts, and then we can match that subsidy with the appropriate fee schedule. The same for our recreation. And then lastly, I think there should be some discussion about impact fees, so that as we grow, growth truly pays for growth, as Director Fisher said, because right now a lot of growth is being subsidized through our CIP fund, which is already constrained. And then one item that's been talked about a bit over the past couple of days has been the interdepartmental charges. So I wanted to bring up kind of what that even means to begin with. First, under GAAP, which is the rules that we have to abide by, an interdepartmental charge is the internal billing of a good or service that one department provides to another department within the same government entity. So it's when there's an outside or a department such as solid waste, for example, that's receiving a good or benefit from a division that is not solid waste. So for example, the attorney's office. How do we ensure that the cost of providing that attorney fee or that attorney benefit is properly charged to the solid waste division? To begin with, we have to look at our administrative departments. I think this is a fantastic number that I hope everyone explains to all your constituents, because this is something that not a lot of communities can say. Across the board, the federal government anticipates that administrative fees are approximately 15%. That's called de minimis. And so if you're at a 15% administrative, that's just considered typical ways that you operate. What we found out when we hired our outside consultant, accounting firm that specializes in this very task, our overhead is actually 12.5%. So 17% lower than what the federal government considers to be de minimis or kind of a minimal threshold. So when people think that there's a lot of bloat or administrative oversight or whatever that happens to be within the organization, we're quite a bit below what the federal government and what national standards kind of says is kind of the typical. With that being said, administrative departments across the board include human resources, attorney, finance, IT, GIS. I'm sorry, not GIS. I apologize, that should not be there. Is HR, attorney, finance, IT, mayor, and city council. Those are all departments that provide services to all the other cost centers across the organization. Then there are some administrative departments that provide some services to some entities, but not across the board. That includes Public Works, Admin, and GIS. Public Works Admin does provide administrative support, for example, to solid waste, to water, to stormwater, and to wastewater, water rec. I think I got everyone. They provide services to that, but they really don't provide services to airport. And so there's no charge for Public Works Administration to airport, but there are to those four utilities. Next, there are two different ways that interdepartmental charges can be determined. The first way is a full cost accounting, and so that would be telling any employee that's within those administrative services every 15 minutes, write down what task you did, what department received the benefit, and then charge their time for those 15 minutes to that various department. There are a couple cities that do that. The problem is it's a huge administrative task, and it has to be done across the entire year because there's a lot of seasonality. And so if you just take 2 or 3 months to do that, whatever data you come up with is not necessarily representative of the entire year. And so if you would want about 80 employees of yours to be recording and charging every 15 minutes, that's something that can be done. However, we will have to hire more administrative employees to manage and keep track of that. That's really not the most effective or efficient way to do that. The next way is to perform an analysis consistent with GAAP principles to complete a charge. So how that's done is the total cost of the administrative departments are allocated to each cost center that receives a benefit. This is done through different allocations. And I have in here, down there, that actually comes, it's a quote out of the methodology that kind of describes how they derived the costs or the benefit to the various cost centers. And so what they were trying to explain there is, for example, a department that's heavy on employees is going to receive more of the HR more of the HR cost than a department that doesn't have as many employees. Same thing for IT. Same thing for a department that has a lot of bills. They're going to receive a lot more of the accounting costs than a department that does not have a lot of bills. So for two examples, within the 2026 interdepartmental charges, HR, there's zero cost to the Vision Fund, to the Occupational Tax Fund, to the Consolidated Construction Fund. The Consolidated Construction Fund has about $25 million. There's no cost from HR to that fund, even though it has a huge budget. The reality is that budget doesn't have any employees, and so it doesn't make sense to have an HR charge that would go to a budget where there are no employees. For example, though, you can look at the cemetery. The cemetery does have 5 FTEs, but only has a budget of $655,000, but it does receive an HR charge of $4,100. And that's because the HR charge is divided up amongst the number of employees that each cost center has allocated to that individual cost center. Another example, accounts receivable. That accounts receivable has $70,391 charge to water, also one to water reclamation, and also one to sanitation. I'm sorry I did not include sanitation up there, I should have. That's the same amount because that pays for our billing clerks that are right now accepting payments from happy customers. And so those three cost centers that produce those bills are the ones that should be paying for their time. With that being said, Consolidated Construction, again, we don't receive a lot of payments in from that. So again, even though it has more than a $20 million budget, its charge is only $6,700. So the full impact of interdepartmental charges, for example, you can look at sanitation. Their total budget is just under $16 million. The departmental administration, so that's for the superintendent, the administrative support professionals that are in that division, that total cost is about 4.8% of their budget. That's a very low overhead rate. Then the interdepartmental charges. So that's going to be for finance, that's for IT, that's for HR, that's for the mayor's office, for the attorneys, that's 5.4%. So their total overhead is 10.2%. Overall, that's a fairly low overhead percentage, just over 10%. And I will say that's actually on a lower budget. That's something that we'll be talking about when we get to Public Works. That budget should be higher. And so as the budget would be higher, that percentage would be even lower than 10%. For example, in airport, they have a total budget of $33.5 million. That is an inflated budget because there's a lot of capital costs in there. Their actual operations budget's about $12.2 million. Airports administration is 6% of their total budget or 16.4% of their operations budget. The interdepartmental charge is only 1.8% of their total budget or 4.8% of their operations budget. And so again, that's a very small percentage when you consider the entire entity that is receiving all of the services, whether it's the attorneys, whether it's IT, whether it's HR. And again, the idea, the general concept of the interdepartmental charge is to ensure that property taxpayers within Rapid City are not subsidizing quasi-independent enterprises. So if you look within our community, there are homeowners that are paying property taxes but are not paying a water bill because they're not on a water system. So why should their property taxes go to help subsidize a water system that they're not a part of? They're not receiving the benefit. That's the concept behind an interdepartmental charge. If you do not ensure that each entity pays their actual calculated share of the administrative overhead, then you end up having a lack of equity where you have property taxpayers that are paying to subsidize services that they do not receive, that they're not even entitled to receive. And that's the end of finance, unless there are any questions.
Kevin?
Thank you. Daniel, thank you for the presentation. I want to go back to revenue. Is there any opportunity, because sometimes we're told, no, we can't tax alcohol, but I know there's the BBB tax for hotels, that some of that goes on alcohol in restaurants, or is it just hotels?
Mr. President?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, Daniel.
The state statute and the state legislature has limited municipalities' ability to increase the level of taxation to anything beyond what Rapid City is currently doing. So the additional 1% tax that's paid for hotels, rental cars, alcohol, to-go food, and I think that's about, and video lottery, no, I'm sorry, not video lottery. Amusement games, so like arcade games, not that that's a lot, but things like that, there is that extra 1%. According to our ordinance, 100% of that gets transferred to the monument, and then 25% of what they receive goes to Visit Rapid City. And so that has been growing faster than inflation and our growth, which has been great, but our ability to really increase that is limited other than attracting more visitors. If we attract more visitors, have more hotels, all that sort of thing, then that revenue stream goes up, but we can't increase at 1%.
So if we would have to go to the legislature to try to get that increase, or at least
Yes.
somehow to get some more revenue out of the sale of alcohol to help pay for everything that, all the expenses that it brings to our city.
Yes, absolutely. And without a doubt, alcohol should be taxed more. If you look at a user fee, a significant portion of public safety services, especially at the county level, but also at the city level, go because of the use and overuse of alcohol. And there's not a lot of tax revenue coming from sales tax that goes to offset that, and that's really borne on the backs of property owners.
Bill, could I go before you, or I'm going to forget what I want to ask here. So, Daniel, when we take payments by credit card, I hope we're collecting the processing fee.
We are not. We are in some of our locations. So the Monument does. There's at the landfill, if we take payments there, there's a couple locations that are. According to our fee schedule that the council adopted a couple months ago, we did actually authorize that. The council did. And so we are going through the process of starting to collect that. We're not quite there yet, but we will be soon.
Well, I just know in my business it adds up. We never used to. I was losing money, so it's a huge item.
It's more than $1 million.
I think, Daniel, you and I have a philosophical difference on these interdepartmental charges. It's never made sense to me, as I understand it, if the city water department wants to have a meeting and they use the Monument conference room, I understand they get billed for that.
Yes.
And it's a city agency, you know, in a city building. If there's food and all that, I get it, but that's never made sense to me. And that same would apply here. Whether it's your finance department, whether it's the mayor, you get paid a salary. And that should just be part of the gig. The example was given, I think, in one of our meetings, or someplace, that when the mayor is in Pierre, maybe lobbying on behalf of the airport to get some funding, we're billed for that time. So he gets paid his salary, and I'm not picking on the mayor, but all these charges, you guys are doing the work. That's your job. I don't understand these interdepartmental charges, and I think the budget has holes in it. I think it's a money grab to try and get revenue, take the revenue from these enterprise funds and fill the holes. If we would raise fees, that would certainly help cover this cost. And my big concern, Daniel, is, as you know, out at the airport, it's governed by the FAA. And if this goes through at the airport, I will guarantee you the FAA is going to look at that, and they're going to look at diversion. And I don't know if you guys can defend that money going to pay the mayor's salary. What's he doing out at the airport? Nothing. What's the finance department doing out there? So and if they investigate that, the airport could lose all funding, and then we got to pay back the funding we've got. It's a huge liability, and I'm just asking you and the mayor to review that, because it's going to be a problem.
Mr. President, if I could respond to that. The reason why there would be a charge from the Monument is because that's not an administrative department. That's actually a separate enterprise fund. And so when they're providing service to someone, they receive compensation for that. The airport, for example, when you look at the audit, our audit includes the airport. If the airport were not part of the city, the airport would have to have a separate independent audit at a charge of probably $90,000 to $100,000. They would have to have lines of credit. When you look right now, the average line of credit's at least 1%. just to have that available. There are several months right now that the airport, at the end of a month, will have a negative cash balance in some of their funds. That's essentially paid for because we have consolidated cash. If the airport was not part of that, they would have to have a line of credit of at least $5 million, which would cost $50,000 just to have that available, plus the charges that would go into effect each and every time. So the idea behind that is that the airport and the users of the airport should actually be paying for some of those services that they are receiving, because not every resident of Rapid City or property owner of Rapid City necessarily uses that. And that is why we actually used, at the airport's request, an outside consultant who specializes in this to come up with our interdepartmental charges. So this fee structure was put into place with an outside consultant, Cherry Beckert, who specializes in this, and these were the rates that they came up with. And that was done precisely to ensure that there is no diversion.
Don't want to get into an argument with you here, Daniel, because I like you, but
And I like you too.
I've been on that airport board for 7 years. I even though I'm not on the board now, I've asked to be looped in on all the things that go out there. I have never seen a negative balance sheet out there.
Your treasury report includes that.
The last one that I saw was in the black, and this company that was hired to do this review. It's my understanding, I could be wrong, that the airport didn't request that. They didn't even talk to the airport. They didn't even come out to the airport. And they came up with these charges. That's poor communications. They should have been out there talking, see what we do. Sure, there's standardized formulas, but every airport has its own little niches. They didn't even talk to anyone. And I think that's bad service and not good communication.
Mr. President, there were several opportunities where this was discussed with all the department directors, and department directors, if they were interested, were able to provide information to the consultants. Whether or not they did, I don't know. I wasn't a part of that communication, but they were able to do that, and they had been aware for the several months where this project was going on. And they did not come to Rapid City because it's a standard process, and no, we didn't pay the additional $5,000 to $10,000 to have the consultants come here to review the operations that are pretty typical of municipalities throughout America.
Thank you, Daniel. Mr. Evans?
Thank you, Mr. Pettigrew, for ensuring I'm no longer Councilman Krabby Appleton #1. Anyhow, question. So this moving toward more electronic services, does that mean this year, after an eon, when I go to do my own taxes, I can type in the city's number and it's going to fill up the W-2s automatically and stuff like that? Is that going to happen? I've been waiting for that to happen for like 20 years, okay? Is that part of this thing?
Go ahead, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. President. That is part of our integration to use Tyler more effectively, and so that, I don't know if that's going to happen for this year. We are trying, but in the future coming years, we should be able to get to that, yes.
And as far as Tyler goes, I've been on the council now, this is my beginning the 7th year. And I really have not heard that term and known about this company until this year. And I don't know what that is. It's a huge service company, and I don't know how much of what they offer we use. I know it probably isn't all encompassing as I'm looking at what they do: appraisal, taxes, civic services, corrections, courts and justice, cybersecurity. I mean, it goes down here. Schools and school transportation, I mean, all comes out of, they offer solutions. Now, is it their own in-house software, or do they just coordinate other things? For instance, using Revit or AutoCAD or something, they're not going to do that, offer that kind of thing through Public Works and Vicky's department and stuff. But what do we use Tyler's services for? And Ms. Seacrest told me it's certainly been in effect over 10 years, and there used to be classes offered by, I think, the finance department to show other departments how to integrate into this one size kind of fits all solution. So how many departments are actually using Tyler services in?
If I may. Tyler is a corporation that started out of Tyler, Texas, actually. They specialize in public sector software. So they have, over the course of their years, bought several different companies that do different things. We use their ERP solution, which is just an enterprise resource solution. So it does our HR, it does our budgeting, it does all of our AP, AR stuff in finance. It does work orders for some departments, and it does asset management, although I will be honest, the asset management is probably not the best I've seen out there because it was kind of a tack on. But in terms of the other things they've done, most of the time, a company like Tyler is very much like other companies like Central Square, which does our computer-aided dispatch. They buy companies to buy customer pools, and then they integrate that software into their overall solution. I don't remember who they bought to do the permitting and licensing, but because that started about 8 years ago that they bought that. So basically, if it affects a government, Tyler has an interest in either writing it or procuring it, but it all runs under their ecosystem. It's not third party.
I'm glad to know that we're moving that way. You know, on a smaller scale, you might say that the whole organization uses Microsoft Office for whatever, and it works when they work, or you're an all Apple group or whatever. The system works, so I'm glad to see that we actually have that coordination, and perhaps, I don't think the airport uses it, right?
Correct.
Right, and so maybe that's things we need to standardize these things, so when it comes to accounting and everything, things work together. And they talk the same, decimal points and everything. All right, thank you.
Before the next comments here, given the time, I think Public Works is on today's agenda. Would that be a disservice to you folks to come back tomorrow? Otherwise, we'll be here till 9 o'clock tonight. So, I'm sorry to inconvenience you. I really do. We just didn't know all these things are going to last this long. But I think that your Public Works is the last item on the agenda, correct?
Yes, and then tomorrow there's PD, Monument,
No, that won't work.
and IT.
That's 3 tomorrow. No.
My agenda
That
just
is
showed
Friday.
1 tomorrow, but
Today's Monday. It's been Monday all week. How about Saturday? Saturday's good.
well, what does the council think? I mean, pardon?
It's been posted. You can't start before 3:30. Sorry. Sorry. There's no action taken, so I don't. Joel may not necessarily like it, but
Should we go on Monday?
Jim, can I just ask you a quick question? Do you think your presentation, have any idea how long that will last?
My presentation is right at 15 minutes tops, probably more like 10.
Well, part of our challenge today was we always get in the weeds on a lot of things here, and it takes so much time. I don't know. I'll be honest with you. My daughter's in town from the other side of the world. I'd like to spend some time with her tonight. I'd like to move it, if we could, to tomorrow. And the council, we're just going to have to be focused, and let's focus on the budget and not all of our other questions. That would be my preference, if you guys would agree to that.
I don't care.
doesn't matter.
Pardon? Okay. So, sorry to do that to you, Public Service or Public Works, but if we can do that tomorrow. And I think this is the end of Daniel's presentation. Is there anything else we got to? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'll go to Kelly Meyer. Women before men. Go ahead, Kelly.
I'll take it. I almost want to ask a question about interdepartmental charges, not to be left out, but so I have a question about impact fees. I know we had mentioned we're going to bring a fee schedule forward. Will we have the inclusion of impact fees on that as well, or a proposal for that included?
Go ahead, Daniel. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't think we will not have that ready by the time we revise our fee schedule again, which would probably be late October, early November. But I think that's something the council seems fairly interested in. We will strive to work on that and within 9 months or so, ish. We will work diligently to bring something forward.
Thank you.
And okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
and remember too that there is money allocated from the Vision Fund into a strategic growth revolving fund, and we need to recover that money back as we identify, as you, the council, say, here's a street that needs to be connected. Maybe it's East Anamosa Street from where it currently terminates to Elkville Road. So the city comes in and we build it, and then we need to have those adjacent property owners pay that back, whether that's an impact fee, how does that impact them, whether it's an assessment. But again, that same kind of process would be set up for something like that as well.
Yep. Thank you, Vicki. Greg, you had some comments?
I just have, and I'm sorry if this came up when I was out of the room, but there's like, on the mayor's handout that came out, rather than digging through the matrix there, there's like 3 lines items that are triple digit or more change. And I just want to ask you, just generally, if you know, the first one is in revenues under grants. 2025 was 653, 2026 was 1.9 million, for a difference of 1.2 million and 194%. Do you know what that is?
That mostly is the raise grant, and I think there was one second, and I'll pull it up. Is a raise grant that we're actually going to directly administer through that cost center, and so that does skew it, but that's where the majority of the costs are going to come from.
Okay, hats off to our grant writer again.
And then we have one second. The Love Your Block grant at 100,000, 500 for Raise Your Grant or Raise Grant, and then and then a contingency for $500,000 as well for other grants that may end up being awarded.
Okay. And again, thank you, Jamie, for all that work that you do on that. And then on the expenses, professional services increased by 166%, and rentals increased by 1,258%.
The rentals, that's because our transit center is increasing the rental rate for the RSVP office that is housed there, which is an appropriate use. And so we don't have much in rentals, but that increase is reflected in that and is market rate too. And I want to make sure we are still getting a good deal. And so that's why that increase was so high. The professional services, that is for, that's going to be for the Raise Grant. That was a significant increase. That's included in that subdivision, as well as the Love Your Block grant.
Let me think that through. Yeah, I think they did.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? If not, thank you very much, Daniel, for
Thank
your
you.
presentation, and we will end today's budget hearing. Pardon?
If you want to do mine, it's up. If you don't, that's fine too. I'm good either way.
He says it's a quickie. We can do it.
Jim? That'd be great. Thank you, Jim.
Timer on the agenda. 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Daryl, would you turn on the screen, please? Want to clear a room? Decide to talk about IT. All right, so I'll go ahead so we can get out of here. So the IT department, as you can see by the quotation on the side, I'll summarize that the best way I know how. IT, you can't run IT like a business. IT is the business. We are currently 13 full-time employees. We are responsible for everything from enterprise software to cybersecurity, our VoIP system that runs most of the city except for the monument. And in the next year, we're going to be doing a lot of work with the citywide camera system and the fiber optic network ring through the city. And obviously, we'll be working hand in hand on the website, not as a engineer or not as a design element, because it would just be black and white and have 2 pages, but we will be there for the technical aspect of it. Instead of talking about individual numbers, because mine are kind of boring, I'd like to talk to you about my budget principles. I run my department with a zero-based mindset because 76% of my operation capital is spent day one. It's all on licensing for our virtual machines and other things that we have to pay for our cybersecurity and our other requirements. So from there, I always look at every decision we make to make sure we're getting a good ROI and a good total cost of ownership. We have not moved to the cloud specifically for that. It does not make sense from a money standpoint. Of course, we are ready to do Office 365 if that is the decision of the council. That will cost approximately $270,000 a year, whereas now, because we use total cost of ownership to decide things, our office cost is $280,000 for a 6-year period total. So, and the other 2 things I always keep in mind is at the end of the budget cycle, if we have money, we give it back, unless we have pressing needs. We don't buy monitors for ourselves. We tend to buy switches for other departments. And my guiding with the budget is always that I have to remember the source, and that is that the source is the taxpayers. So it's not my money. I just get to spend it. Just a little graph here to show you how we compare to other departments. My department is at 13. I took an average of 5 other municipalities in the Midwest, although one of them was Texas because they fell into that number, so I don't know if you want to consider Texas the Midwest. But we are a much smaller department than almost any other government department we look at. Our budget is a third of other departments. Our external spend, which would be on consultants, is exceedingly low. I have a great team that does really wonderful work, and we do so in-house whenever we can, and we do so at the same salary cost as every other department in this little survey. An example of this is when we did our fiber optic loop down town here, we spent $140,000 on it. What we were going to be bid out was in the neighborhood of $280,000. So we generally come in quite a bit lower than if we were to spend outside of the IT department. Another example is this is the cost in dollars per month of VoIP phones. So every phone we have in our environment. Our current solution that my team engineered comes in at about $2.1 per month. And you can see the other one's a local vendor on the quote that they gave us was $30 per phone per month. So we see quite a bit of savings by actually developing our people and letting them take risks on things like a VoIP system. And I don't know why it's formatted like that, but oh well. So when you look at my budget, there's some changes. Most of that was just the line items moving around. All up, we are $70,000 lower. That's because last year we were being held hostage by a company called Broadcom that bought out VMware. We're breaking away from that now, so we will be on a different virtualization platform going forward. The only grants we have that we're looking at is the South Dakota Secure Grants Program. They provide grants in state for cybersecurity, so we'll probably be looking at that. And then anything that's going to be coming back here is the same thing that we have for everything else. Anything that we're going to spend over $25,000 on. But again, it's mostly ready to spend day one. We just have to wait for the renewal date. So issues and challenges. Our biggest issue right now, and this is true whenever I'm talking to a CIO or a director of IT in any public sector environment, the majority of the world in private sector works on OpEx, operational expenses that they can write off on their taxes. We don't have that luxury. So we do not have a good way of working in the sandbox that everyone else is playing in. So when a company spends $300 million on Office 365 in a year, they write a large portion of that off. We don't. We pay that. So we need to get probably a little more creative in how we attach that, because everything in our field is going towards subscription models. We can no longer rely on perpetual licenses. So we're investigating that, we're working on that, and I do believe that the federal government is going to change some of the rules and regulations around what counts as OpEx and what counts as CapEx, as more of those expenses go that way. Staffing is always a concern for us. My team is awesome, they do a great job. But we are probably undersized based on both the averages that we look at in the area and, of course, Gartner, who puts out surveys on how many people you should have in your support staff for your size. Not asking for more right now, but more asks of us will require more staff, certainly. And then with everything we do, we are not a driver. We are a support. So if you ask what I would do with less money, it really comes down to the rest of the city. We would have to talk to the other departments and see what services or what availability they could wait on for a year or more, because at a certain point we don't have time to implement and we don't have time to maintain. We get a lot of free puppies in IT where somebody will get money to implement something, and then we have to bear the cost of the ongoing maintenance and the time, so because time is money. And then finally, any questions? See, I told you.
Just a couple comments. Jim, I understand the subscription. I mean, that's affected our business. For us, it works. We're a two-bit operation. And I really appreciate your presentation. It was efficient, to the point, and I admire how much work you guys do in-house to save the city money. It's amazing. You're a good example for maybe other departments to look at. Thank you. Kelly?
Thank you. I'm curious why we don't use Zoom in any of our meetings.
So there's a couple of reasons for that. One is a little less than savory. Obviously, Zoom bombing is a real thing. In fact, we just had a rather distasteful display of that in one of our Zoom meetings that the MPO ran for them. The second is a policy choice. And that is a policy choice that was made by, I don't recall if it was a council choice or a mayoral choice. We would not use Zoom. We would use, our software here is called vMix, and we have a way to bring some people in. In a space like this with speakers, it is difficult to not have echo. So there's some technical challenges, but we are certainly, it's certainly more of a challenge in a space like this. So.
Councilman Evans.
So I wasn't aware that we did not have Microsoft 365. We really do not have that? Wow, that's kind of unbelievable. Even the schools have that.
Schools get it for free, sir.
That does make a difference, doesn't it? Okay.
Or reduced.
I'm curious about county and integration with what they do. Is there any kind of, I know with dispatch and emergency response and everything, we have to obviously coordinate with the county and our police department and all that other stuff. How much interaction do you actually have with their IT people? And how much do they cross and how much do they duplicate?
So most of our interaction is just the interactions between the PD and the SO, the sheriff's office. At one point, actually 12 years ago, before I was the acting director and then the director, we did actually take over the SO's IT in terms of management of the staff. That proved difficult at best because of the different budgets and the different just the different organizations. But we have a great working relationship with the county. Mike is the new the lead now that Lori's left, and when we ever have a problem, we talk about vendors all the time. So yeah, we have a good relationship, and we have a good level of trust, so that if they call and say, hey, we have a sheriff's office person who's going to be in this building, can they get a network drop? There's no problems there, but we don't really cross paths in terms of mission that much.
So, yeah, we use a lot of their services, obviously, to find out information for what we do, like Rapid Map and stuff.
Rapid Map's ours.
That's ours, okay.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering about. And so it's great that you coordinate and we're not actually duplicating services in hardly any case, but I just wanted to, ask that question so you'd say it out loud. Thanks.
Any other comments? If not, again, thank you, Jim, for your presentation, and we will call this budget hearing over.